Hello, my name is HQ of HQ Reacts. Welcome to my channel. Please do me a favor. Hit the like button, share the stream, and click the notification button for new content.
Said that federal immigration agents actually pulled over your son on Saturday and asked him to prove his citizenship. He is, of course, a U.S. citizen, as are you.
One place that is not fine is Minneapolis. They have a representative named Ilhan Omar, who's a wildly anti-American lunatic. She went on Wolf Blitzer's program on CNN, and apparently she's made up a story that her son was pulled over by ICE. Now, her son is... Well, I was about to say her son is a legal immigrant to the United States, but A, who the hell knows? And her mom did marry her brother for immigration purposes, so I'm not sure how that affects the kid, but I assume he was born here in the United States. The point is, here she is. She's a bullshit artist. Wolf's an idiot. Watch.
You've said that federal immigration agents actually pulled over your son on Saturday and asked him to prove his citizenship. He is, of course, a U.S. citizen, as are you. The Department of Homeland Security says, and I'm quoting them, ICE has absolutely zero record of its officers or agents pulling over Congresswoman Omar's son, and have accused you of seeking to, quote, demonize ICE as part of a PR stunt, their words. What do you say to that?
Well, if ICE is saying that they have documentation of every single person that they have pulled over in Minneapolis, we would love to see that record because we've certainly, myself and the governor, have been asking them to share information with us on the ways in which they have interacted with Minnesotans, and they have not been able to provide a single information. So it is amazing that they're able to put out this statement saying definitely that they did not pull my son over when they haven't been able to answer anything else.
Have you noticed that her accent is getting a little more guttural as she smiles through all her lies? Like there's something weird going on there. Now, interestingly, it does turn out her son was born in the United States. So regardless of the fact that she married her brother, here's the birth certificate. Everyone knows it at this point, and they're just pretending it's not happening. So even though she married her brother, apparently her son was born in the United States. But notice she never denied it. She never denied that they made it up, right? Wolf was like, did this happen? She never said, oh no. Also interesting was what Wolf said there. He, meaning the son, he is a U.S. citizen, as are you. Why did you say that, Wolf? That seems very strange to say that a sitting congresswoman is a U.S. citizen. That's kind of implied. So why would you say that, Wolf, unless you're doing your job at CNN, which is laundering the lies, because she broke federal immigration law, and we will deal with that.
Hello, hello, hello. Let me start by saying this is not a show or a speech accusing anybody of a crime. We're not saying anybody is guilty. And this is not a speech claiming I have some secret information. This is a speech about facts, about timelines, about responsibility, and about a question that every person is allowed to ask. When something massive happens money-wise, in plain sight, for years, who knew and who should have known? Because here's the truth. Fraud doesn't happen just in a vacuum. This big, this large. It doesn't happen quietly. Nah, it doesn't happen without the ripples, without cousins talking to cousins, about friends talking to friends. No. When people are getting the money, people are having a money grab, and they're all related, and they know each other, friends, family, X, Y, and Z, that whole town. Somebody knew, and somebody knew. This is the truth. When it happens in the heart of a congressional district, this is her congressional district. We're talking about Ilhan Omar. This is her congressional district, her district, during a national emergency involving hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars. It is reasonable, not radical, not anything out of the ordinary, not spectacular, to think questions need to be asked about what people knew and who knew about it and when. So, these are the rules that I'm going to state. This is what I'm going to say. Everything I'm about to say is verifiable. Everything I'm about to say is public record. Everything I can say can be checked. I will not say she did it. I will not say she knew for sure. I will say, though, this is what happened. This is when it happened. This is where it happened. This is who had authority. And then I will ask, is it believable? Is it believable she knew nothing at all? That's it. That's it. So, Ilhan Omar she was elected in Congress 2018. She took office 2019. She represents Minnesota's 5th congressional district, which includes Minneapolis, which includes the fraudster town, the town that has all of the fraud in it. It's included in her district. She maintains offices in that district. She travels back and forth between Washington and Minnesota. She meets with community leaders. She meets with nonprofit organizations. You notice how many people got caught up in that fraud. Mostly to do with money coming from the government. Mostly due to those handout businesses that people say, you're getting handout, you always want money. She's deeply involved in that. This is not disputed. This is her job. She is not a junior backbench burner person in that town with no influence. She is a national figure, a frequent media personality, a legislator involved in social policy. Those are the facts. Now, the fraud happened. When did the fraud happen? The bulk of the fraud happened during COVID. COVID shut down schools. Parents lost their mind. Kids lost access to school and food. Congress moved on that fast on purpose. And here's a critical point people forget. When government moves fast, oversight is taken out of the equation. That's not corruption, though. That's the emergency governance. So, Ilhan Omar, I guess a year after she got into work, a year and a half after she got into Congress, introduced Meals Act, the Meals Act, MEALS, Meals Act, in March 2020. Why specifically did she introduce that particular bill that allowed the USDA to waive normal requirements for receiving funds from the government? So kids wouldn't go hungry. Again, the intent matters, and the intent was good. It was good. It was a good thing. She made up this bill, put it on the floor, March 2020, called Meals Act. That bill said waivers mean less paperwork, less verification, less physical oversight. That's not an opinion. That is what waivers are. What relaxed oversight actually means, relaxed oversight does not mean no oversight. It means organizations self-report. Audits come later, not that month, maybe 12 months away. They might get an audit for the money. There's site visits. People go and visit the sites and make sure that you're spending the money the way it's supposed to be spent. Those stopped. So prioritization over verification out the window. This is documented by USDA itself. Of course, the Minnesota Department of Education is overwhelmed, overrun. That's also documented. But Ilhan Omar is the one person in Congress who introduced specifically this bill that, wait a minute, let me look at that again. It waived the normal requirements, said that they didn't have to send in the paperwork, less verification, less oversight. This is when the bulk of the fraud started to occur. Why wasn't there fraud before this? Why wasn't there fraud before she introduced this bill to take oversight away? Less paperwork, less verification, less physical oversight. Why wasn't there fraud then? Ain't nobody heard nothing about no fraud before then. This fraud happened after she introduced the bill. So she introduced a bill that takes away the oversight, the verification, and the paperwork. On top of the fact that a week after she does it, Donald Trump does it as well. Donald Trump gets a bigger bill, an even bigger bill, and does it, gives the money away. Okay, relaxed oversight. Don't have to report, don't have to turn in no forms. That's all you had to do was ask for the money, and the money came. This happened right after COVID. Why was there no fraud before this? There was no fraud before that, before Ilhan Omar's bill was introduced. What happened? So here comes the fraud. Here comes the fraud. Between 2020 and 2021, all those organizations in Minnesota started submitting their claims. I spent $2,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 a week feeding people. Big claims, massive claims. Why did they know that right after she introduced that bill, that was when it was time to get that money, do that thing, get that money, put the fucking pedal to the metal and zoom it? Why did they know to do it after she introduced that bill? Because there was no fraud before that. It was no rampant fraud before that. Only after she introduced that bill and Donald Trump introduced his bill did the fraud become rampant. How did they know to do it after she introduced that bill? Massive claims. Claims saying thousands of meals are being served daily. Claims that, according to federal prosecutors, were physically impossible. Why didn't they know 3 months in? Claims that, according to federal prosecutors, were impossible. Physically impossible for you to feed this many people every day. Physically impossible. Yet you all continue to send the money. This is called The organization that got the most money, the bulk of the money, where all the convictions came, most of the convictions came, most of the people were arrested and accused and sent to jail. Feeding Our Future is the name of the case. Feeding Our Future. Why did these people know this was the time to put the pedal to the metal and steal like this? Apparently it was easy to get money before. It wasn't that difficult to get money before. Why was it? How did you know to do it? How did you know? How did they know? And how did all of these people, all of these organizations know? Because they talk to each other. Eventually, DOJ said about 250 million in fraud, 250 million in fraud, right? Shell companies, fake attendance sheets, empty buildings. It's not a rumor. This is in the indictments. Where did it happen? Minnesota's 5th district, Minneapolis, the same district Ilhan Omar represents, the district that she got the rules to be lax on, the government regulations, rules, laxed visits, paperwork, all in her district. So you mean to tell me that woman never walked into any of these centers, any of these places, had none of her assistants call and ask, hey, is the paperwork getting lighter? Are you having more trouble getting food and stuff and money to help your organization? Because I introduced a bill that was to help you all get the money quicker. You mean to tell me she didn't have somebody go and check that they were getting the money like they were supposed to? She didn't check. She didn't get a check by nobody. She just assumed when she introduced that bill that it would trickle down. She wouldn't have to tell nobody. Would nobody know? Blah blah blah. Somebody she worked for didn't tell her nothing, because she has people who would be able to check. If I'm going to sign a bill for you and you and you and you all in the same district, I'm going to figure out how it's going to benefit you. I'm going to follow up and figure out how it benefited you. Did it benefit you correctly? Did I do the right thing? Did I get the right bill passed? Yes. You can't tell me that was not done. The timeline problem. The problem with this timeline. She's in office before the fraud. But ain't nobody heard nothing about no fraud before she got in office. The fraud begins after oversight is relaxed. After everybody finds out that the oversight is relaxed. After everybody finds out. The fraud begins right after the oversight is relaxed. The fraud continues for over a year. For 1 year, over a year. Red flags are raised during that time frame. All through that time frame. You mean to tell me nobody told Ilhan Omar that anything was going on? Red flags were raised during that time frame. And she had no clue. Payments and money continue to go to those centers. This is not a 1 week scam. Hit it and quit it. Boom, boom, boom. Let's hit it. Let's hit them for about half a rip. About stacks. Couple stacks. Let's hit them for a couple stacks. Then we're going to quit. This ain't no hidden stuff offshore. This is a prolonged, local, visible scam, and people in that town knew about it. She had to have had some. Look, I'm just going to keep a buck with y'all. Them people look alike to me. All of them people got the same shape and same all that. And I know they're not. But they stick together like us black and white folk don't. Those people stick together like us black and white folk don't. Because if I know my cousin is scamming, I ain't finna tell on my cousin. Damn, you doing it too? Shit, I was doing it. How can I do that shit? How can I get that money? You think that didn't happen? You think that didn't happen? And you think Ilhan Omar don't have no brothers and sisters or cousins or whatever in that town? And nobody told her, hey girl, hey Ilhan, hey. Just to give you a heads up, cuz Mohammed Gaddafi over there getting that lit. He getting like 8 rats a week. Ilhan Omar. How's he doing that? Ain't that the look? You mean tell me ain't nobody gave her that look? She didn't know? The political the reality of it is people don't like to admit this shit. They don't just pass laws. They receive complaints. They receive phone calls. They receive warnings. Nonprofits talk. Whistleblowers talk. Local media talks. And when something involves tens of millions of dollars, it don't stay quiet. Now, does that prove she knew? Nope. But it raises a goddamn question. Is her ignorance to the shit believable? Is it believable? I don't know.
Do you know where the Treasury Secretary just left off? He alleged that people who were tied to you or your campaign were involved in this broad, brazen scheme to rip off the Minnesota state welfare system. Do you want to respond to that? Do you know what he is referring to?
I really don't, and I don't think the secretary himself understands what he's referring to. We obviously had people who were able to donate to our campaign that were involved. We sent that money back a couple years ago. And actually, I was one of the first members of Congress to send a letter to the Secretary of Ag asking them to look into what I thought was a reprehensible fraud that was occurring within the program.
So this was, just for our audience, the Biden-era Justice Department called it the largest COVID fraud scheme in the country. And this was pocketing COVID-era welfare funds, more than $1 billion in taxpayer money that was stolen. It was pretty shocking. Of the 87 people charged, all but 8 are of Somali descent. And that has added to the spotlight being put specifically on your community. Why do you think this fraud was allowed to get so widespread?
Because it was word of mouth. And we knew each other. They all knew each other. They were family. These people are related. According to y'all, I don't know. She married her brother, right? According to news, she married her brother, right? That tell me all y'all closer than what we think y'all is. I'm not saying nothing. I ain't saying nothing. All I'm saying is anybody that would think up marrying their brother, anybody who would think up that bullshit, look, shit going on. These people, you can't tell me that this didn't rise to the level of where she was, or people she knew around her knew what was going on. They just trying to save her. They trying to save her. Okay? They trying to save her. Bullshit.
Well, I want to say, this also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been
You all did benefit from the money that was stolen. You were the ones who stole it. What is she talking about? We could have benefited. Of course you could have benefited. You all did benefit. You look, this was a word of mouth. Hey girl, I know X, Y, and Z. I know how you can get paid off these COVID people. Just like them people got them PPP loans. Y'all know what I'm talking about. All them people got them PPP loans. Word of mouth. Girl, you can get this money. Let's get this money. Same thing happened here. You can't tell me she didn't know. I know plenty of people who got the PPP and some people that didn't. But that didn't mean they didn't know. Same thing with this right here. She good. She got to get out in front of it. She better get out in front of it.
really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
Mm-hmm. So do you think, though, that there was a failure by the Democratic state government to police itself? This is a brazen.
No. Don't pull the Democrats into this bullshit. Keep it on the Somali people. Keep it on the people that did it. This is all their problem. See, the one thing I don't like is y'all trying to pull Tim Walz into the bullshit. Tim Walz didn't know jack shit about. Tim Walz is an old white dude sitting up in his damn house fishing. This is not something he would have had a inkling about. The person that's on that level is her and the senator. She is the one who should have known. She is the first line, and she should have known because she wanted them. She's the one who introduced that damn law into Congress saying, take away the registration, take away the validation, take away the oversight, take away the turning in the forms every week. She's the one who introduced the law. Wait a minute, what was that? What was that law? What the hell she introduced? She's the one who introduced relaxed oversight. Less waivers mean paperwork. Less verification. Less paperwork mean more waivers. Less verification. Less physical oversight. Nobody showed up and said nothing. Nobody had to turn in no paperwork. You ain't got to turn it in for 6 months. She is the one who introduced the bill for that to happen. Why would she introduce a bill that took away the oversight, gave it relaxed oversight? She is the one who introduced this. Okay? She is the one who introduced. You can't tell me her office didn't receive complaints, didn't receive warnings, didn't receive phone calls. Okay? So no, not buying
fraudulent activity here.
Yeah, and that is what I alluded to in my letter that I'd sent to the Secretary of Eg, was to see where things were going wrong. How can this amount of money disappear fraudulently without there being alarms being set off? And it is something that, we have to continue to investigate. We have to continue to ask those questions.
Because, as you know, one of the initial defenses by the organization at the heart of the fraud, Feeding Our Future, was to claim the probe was due to racism. Do you think that this was...
But see, that's the first thing they throw out. Always trifling ass people. The first thing they throw out of there is, it's racism, it's racism, it's racism. No, if you're doing wrong and you're trifling, it ain't racism. It's that y'all doing wrong and y'all trifling. Okay? This is a part of the problem I have. When people throw the word racism out there, they try to get you out of their face. They try to get you out of their face when they throw out that racism card, and then people don't want to look at it, so they go away. I ain't gonna say nothing because she think it's racist. No, y'all should have kept on top of that. You should have immediately. You know how they came out this week? United States government came out this week and said, we shutting them funds down. Why didn't y'all shut them funds down back then? As soon as y'all had a whiff of anything that was fraudulent, y'all should have shut that down, told Ilhan Omar, and then had her go out there and investigate. This is your state. You go out there and investigate. You figure it out. Take somebody out there and y'all figure out what's going on. You mean to tell me she didn't try to figure out what was going on without the FBI, without anybody else looking into it? She wanted to find out whether she had family that was involved. You can't tell me she didn't know. Well, I'm not going to say allegedly. Okay? Allegedly. First thing I'm going to find out, it's a whole bunch of y'all? Oh, shit, all my cousins and family live in that town. Let me find out about my cousins and family. Oh, shit, my cousin, Muhammad, bought him a brand new car. How he do that? Here's a documented fact. Some individuals later convicted in this fraud case donated to her campaign. She just said it. Those donations were returned. She said that. Okay, that was the correct action. But donations imply contact, visibility, presence. Again, not guilty, but proximity to the bullshit. You were close to the bullshit. They gave you this. You can't tell me that some of them people that did this didn't walk into her office and give her a check. Let me give you a check, Omar. Let me donate to her campaign. I want her to know I did it. And now none of her assistants turned around and said, wait a minute, hold on. How they giving you millions of dollars? How they giving you thousands of dollars? And this is a daycare. This is a charity place feeding people food. How they got $5,000 to give Ilhan Omar? How they got enough money to give you donations and you didn't look at them people and say, damn, how's that charity, how's that organization giving away money like that? Where y'all getting that money from? Not nobody, not even her, looked at it and said, oh, something is crazy.
Was all about negligence, or that it was like political fear of alienating the Somali community?
So you have to remember that the woman who led the program is a Caucasian woman. And that was...
You see her say that, you see that the first thing, right? You see the first thing she said, oh yeah, feeding the children. That organization that's under investigation is led by a white woman. You see that, right? It's led by a white woman. She made sure she tried to throw that lady under the bus. She made sure of that.
Her way of making sure that this would continue to happen by using whatever rhetoric that was available to her. We do know that when the money was stopped, they did sue. The AG, Attorney General Keith Ellison, defended the department in that lawsuit.
How you gonna sue the department and you know your ass is guilty? How you got the cojones to sue the government and you know you getting fraudulent money? How you know you getting fraudulent money and you sue the department? How that happen? This is wild.
It was a judge that said it should continue, that money should continue to go out. And so this wasn't something that people were not looking at. There was always those alarms, and we will continue to understand where things might have gone wrong as these investigations continue and as these fraudsters are prosecuted and sent to jail.
Well, it's going to have impact for your community, because we've already heard the head of Medicare and Medicaid say they're going to have a new policy that applies to Minnesota. You heard the Treasury Secretary say they're investigating. But there's another.
But see, here's the thing. There's other states that did the same thing. There's other states that did the same thing. Let's hope y'all just ain't looking at Minnesota. Let's hope y'all looking at more than Minnesota. Because if Minnesota people thought about it, Minnesota people did the shit, other states did the same shit. Are y'all running back tracks on these people too?
Right here, because House Republicans and the Treasury Secretary just now talked about a link to terrorism.
We ain't gonna go down that road with you. Ain't nobody talking about no terrorism, girl. I don't even know why you brought that up. But here's the thing: responsibility versus criminality. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. Allegedly. Responsibility is not the same as guilt. Awareness is not the same as conspiracy. That's true. And leadership carries that expectation. And when fraud happens on her watch, in her district, using programs that you supported, the question becomes, what did you know? When did you know it? And if you didn't know, why didn't you know it? The core questions here is, let me leave this with you. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm asking you to think. A fraud this big, this long, this local, this visual during relaxed oversight that she introduced, that Ilhan Omar introduced this legislation that relaxed the oversight, gave you emergency money. Y'all know how easy it was when them people got them PPP loans, right? All that damn fraud and abuse in the PPP loan. This is the same damn thing. Same damn thing. During the emergency spending, COVID, under a representative deeply involved in social policy, this is her thing. This is her stick. This is her main bread and butter, social policy. Is it reasonable to believe she knew nothing at all? You got to decide that, because in democracy, asking that question is not extreme. It's not extreme. It's accountability. It is what it is. So we have to address one thing that's in the room. We're going to address one thing that's in the room. People keep saying that Ilhan Omar, she came into office with X amount of dollars, and now she going out to she's still worth X amount of dollars. Okay, her net worth when she first was elected, what was it, 2019? Omar, she reported very limited assets. She had a retirement account that was $1,000 to $15,000. She had student loan debt about $15,000. She did not report a significant amount of assets or real estate. Based on her personal net worth, she owed more money. She was negative 45 when she 45K when she went into Congress. In other words, she was carrying a lot of student debt. Now, when this filing or her financial paperwork was filed in 2024, her net worth was what? What did they say it was? Couple $1 million. But that what you don't understand is her husband's financial paperwork is included in that. Her husband's business is included in this money. Okay. Retirement, 17 to 80,000. Savings, 1,015. Student loan, blah, blah, blah. Two major assets on her disclosure came from businesses tied to her husband's, not direct personal money. St. Croix LLC was a winery valued at $1 million to $5 million. Rose Lake Capital, venture capital firm valued at $5 million to $25 million. When those two businesses when their valuations were included, the combined household net worth is listed on her disclosures as 66 to 30 million. That's the range that they gave her. She didn't make any money while she's there. People keep saying she make a lot of money. No, she didn't make no money. Ain't no extra money. Ain't no extra X, Y, and Z. That's her and her husband's money put together. Because congressional financial disclosures uses a range, and it uses use your spouse's money and everything else. Okay, what we do know is her net worth potentially near zero or a low 5-figure income. That's where she's at. Her household income, however, is between 6 and 30 million. She didn't make no millions of dollars. People keep saying she made millions of dollars. No, she didn't. No, she didn't. What changed was her net worth. Now she's not negative. Now it's not negative. It has nothing to do with her. Her husband makes that kind of money. Okay. And she makes a salary, I think, of $175K from Congress. $175K. She said she's not a millionaire. She does not have stocks or significant personal assets. She emphasized on paying her student loan down. That's why she doesn't have that much money personally. Okay. And that's why people keep saying, well, she has money. No, she doesn't. She never did. She never did. So this is her. So I say this, the young lady. Why she didn't know. How she didn't know, what she didn't know, I don't know. But I do know whatever it is fishy. Whatever it is fishy. So I'm going to say this. What reasonable people, what logical people would come up and they're going to ask. We know Ilhan Omar went into office in 2018. We know she was the person who introduced the legislation that relaxed all of the rules and the reporting and all of that. She introduced that legislation. She alone. I didn't find nobody else to introduce the legislation except her. And then Donald Trump introduced a bigger budget, a bigger relaxation of rules and regulation. He introduced a bigger bill a week later that did the same thing, but it was on a larger scale. Okay. Her bill relaxed the oversight. That's when the fraud started to occur. That's when they went bananas with the legislation, with her legislation being introduced. How did they know she had introduced that legislation? How did they know that the rules have been relaxed? How did they know to go bananas on what they went bananas on? How did they know? Because they went bananas right after she introduced it. Right after she introduced that bill in Congress, they went bananas. Okay. That's when the fraud occurred. We know how long it lasted. We know how large it became. A couple $1 billion maybe. And we know none of this happened in secret. This was not hidden offshore money. This was not a single bad actor person. This was not a 1-week mistake. This was a prolonged, visible, local thing that happened. And it unfolded inside of the district that she represents. That leads us to question, not accusations, but questions that naturally arise from the facts. How does a fraud of this size grow for over a year without reaching the awareness of the district's federal representative? How does relaxed oversight introduced to solve one emergency fail so spectacularly without triggering alarms at the highest levels in her office? How does a system designed to help kids become one of the largest fraud cases in American history, state history, without anybody in power noticing the scale of what was happening? Not her, not nobody. And perhaps the most difficult question that I would have is, At what point does not knowing stop being a plausible excuse and start becoming a failure of your responsibility as a congresswoman? No court answered this question. No indictment has resolved this question, but democracy does require a conviction to demand accountability. It only requires facts, attention, and the courage to ask what those facts reasonably suggest. You may decide she didn't know. You may decide she should have known. You may decide the system failed around her. But after laying out that timeline right there, getting into Congress, introducing that legislation, Donald Trump introducing that legislation, them going bananas with that, the lax registration, them stopping, boom, start, stop. It's no longer reasonable to say there are no questions to ask about this shit. And we should be asking questions. I'm not attacking her. I'm just asking these questions. That's all we're doing is asking questions. Why didn't you know? I don't know. Why didn't you know? I don't know. What the hell happened? I don't even know. What the hell happened? Oh, so somebody, Michael, $2 super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you. Okay, all of those are. Thank you. Anyway, also on to our next thing. We had an election. Last night. Didn't we have an election last night? Right? We had an election and something happened. What the hell happened? Some people won some elections in Iowa. Something happened in Iowa? You mean to tell me that something happened in Iowa? What was going on? What's going on with you Republicans that y'all getting broke off like y'all getting broke off? What the hell is happening? What the hell? Get up there. Add to the stage. Hold on.
All right, let's go ahead and wait and see what we have. And let's see, do we have view contest details? I'm kind of interested to see if they do have a map. It does not look like they have a map.
Okay. Hold on.
So we'll just wait. I assume that we're going to get results early.
Hold on, just give me a minute. It was the wrong one.
At 2025, and today we are going to be talking about the 2026 midterm elections from the perspective of a Republican strategist who has advised campaigns on the congressional level, presidential level, super PACs, and corporations alike. The Republican strategist here, Robert Blizzard, who now does his own polling for the GOP, has found that the Republican Party needs to be put in reality check for the 2026 midterm elections and beyond as they face a tumultuous campaign season marred by an unpopular president, a number of issues that Democrats are outflanking Republicans on, and a dampening electorate that is finding itself less and less likely to vote as elections go on since Donald Trump's second term has begun. Now, the focus of this video is going to be primarily about how this Republican is approaching the 26 midterms and what really stands to be the most important thing for them, and especially in terms of how Republicans should be navigating the 2026 midterms. This Republican recognizes that 2026 will not be a normal midterm environment, and it is often rare to see from the GOP perspective that this is an admission. Many Republicans have promised that they believe that Donald Trump is still popular. They call these polls that we know to be true to be fake news. They call the data points that we see as extremely, extremely powerful warning signs for the Republican Party to be that of fluke elections. They're never taken seriously, and they ultimately find themselves really honing in on the very few bullet points that have been given to them from the White House and from Donald Trump's team that swear and promise the midterms will go fine until eventually they do not. And so to see a Republican actually recognize from their own perspective and on the side of their political party say adamantly that 2026 will not go their way is honestly quite surprising. But it also goes to show just how much the numbers here have to be that this GOP strategist is willing to put this out in print on a national level and say, this is how bad of a position we are today, and I will be the one who calls it for what it is. I will be the one who goes out there and tells the press, tells the media that I am worried as a Republican strategist. Now, looking at the
Yeah, but here's the thing. We warned people before they voted for Donald Trump that the American public did not want that agenda. It wasn't an agenda. It wasn't an agenda that most people could get behind. We understood there was immigration. We understood all of that, and most people are for immigration. They're just not for the immigration the way this president decided he was going to do it. They just wasn't with that. And most people are not. This is why the GOP and the Republicans are losing. And they're going to continue to lose as long as we go down the same track. Because the bulk of America, see, here's the thing, what people don't seem to get. The bulk of the American electorate, did not vote. It was a small subsection of the electorate that voted. And the amount of people that voted for Donald Trump. But that wasn't all of the people that normally vote. You only got a smaller share. So he won the bulk of that smaller share. That wasn't the majority of the country. That was a small subset of the country. That's why you have the pushback of these people. You have the pushback of all of the people now. Because the people who said, oh, shit, I didn't vote. Oh, shit, I forgot. Oh, I didn't vote. I didn't want to vote for Kamala. I didn't want to vote for Trump. All them people are coming out and saying, oh, no, we never wanted this. This is what you're saying. And the people who have buyer's remorse, which is probably the younger generation, what is it called? Independents. They're having buyer's remorse.
The perspective that is brought to this, I think it actually hits a lot of the points that we have been making on this channel. And number one that we started off with, that 2026 will certainly not be a normal midterm environment. And he recognizes that elections like 2010 and 2006 very well might be of the past. And I think to a higher degree, right, I believe that. When I look at a lot of the victories the Democrats had, for instance, in 2006, I see it in deep red states like Arkansas, where Democrats had the majority of the state's delegation, or in states like Mississippi, where Democrats and Republicans were 50-50, or in other states across the country like North and South Dakota that have sole Democratic representatives in states that Republicans had won for decades on end, even leading up to these House elections. And seeing it in 2010 completely reversed, there's a lot of red districts in places I would entirely expect, but also red districts in places I would not. Places like suburban New York, places like Illinois, where Democratic drawn districts still ended up flipping, right? Things that don't make sense today that made sense for the time. 2026 probably won't look similar to either circumstance, but I do think it'll look a lot closer to 2006 than this GOP strategist is willing to admit. But in this understanding of why the loss is coming, in this recognition that, there's a multitude of reasons as to why Republicans are the underdogs for 2026, despite having a trifecta right now, is namely three things. One, on the issues that matter most to Americans in 2026, the data, and again, this is a pollster who sees this data, very clear cut, it is healthcare and it is the economy. Right now, and the economy is tangled into the job market, inflation, cost of living. So keep all of that lumped together. That is true. Democrats are going to do better than Republicans because Republicans have the trifecta. And I know that sounds a little confusing, but in admission of that, these are issues that are top to Americans. If they feel that that America is on the wrong track for all of these issues, they're going to look at the party in power and say, what are you doing to fix it? How is it that we've ushered you into a massive advantage in the U.S. Senate, in the House, in the White House? You have the Supreme Court at your disposal. Average Americans know this, and they see it, and they blame the political party that is in power. That's why Donald Trump's approval rating on inflation is at negative 30%, and with it, dragging down his national numbers. The second thing is that Trump voters are entirely unreliable in midterm elections. I think that the 2024 election results shocked a lot of people, including those in the Trump world, those who were closest to the then former president, now president of the United States, who were really shocked that Donald Trump was able to do as well as he ended up doing on November of 2024. But I think that when you look at the low propensity voters that Donald Trump is able to mobilize and get out there, it actually isn't all that shocking. On one end, sure, right? We know this to be just a constant factor that Donald Trump in and of itself, he is a base motivator and brings out Republican vote share. But to the degree that he did so in 2024, we saw that despite largely more motivated and enthusiastic voters on the Democratic side, there were a lot of voters that the polling missed. There were a lot of voters that voting groups missed that people didn't realize were getting out to vote for Donald Trump and solely for Donald Trump, that didn't vote in the 23 elections, certainly didn't vote in the midterm elections, might not have even voted in 2020. Donald Trump did convince a lot of Biden voters to switch over. But a lot of these voters that Donald Trump got were brand new voters that were entering into the electorate for the first time and in this side for Donald Trump. But in a midterm environment, especially as his approval rating really goes down from plus 12 on inauguration day to negative 16, that's a 28-point swing in less than a year. And voters are largely disillusioned. They're unhappy with Donald Trump. They see things like the Epstein's files. They see things like the One Big Beautiful Bill. They see things like this Obamacare crisis and the withholding that the Republicans in Congress are doing for average Americans, and they don't like it. They elected Donald Trump because he promised on day one he would fix all of these issues, and yet nothing is changing. If anything, for them, it's getting worse. Not to mention, too, that Trump voters, again, are mobilized by him being on the ballot. A lot of them don't vote in midterm elections because they don't feel that same allegiance and fealty to the Republican Party in a way a lot of these high-propensity Democratic voters, while they may not be thrilled with Democrats, are certainly going to vote against Donald Trump by any means necessary, whether that's local dog walker all the way up to President of the United States. And in a midterm environment that is fully exposed, and that matters. The third real thing is that, what Donald Trump's approval rating has largely done for the Republicans and for the Democrats is create a concrete boogeyman for 2026. I think that in 2024, the Democratic Party's playbook around a number of these elections in opposition to Trump didn't really help them as much as it did in 2020. It didn't work for them in 2016, but 4 years after that, Joe Biden was elected largely on the premise of a battle for the soul of the nation, but also a changing of leadership in regards to what Democrats and Republicans and independents and everyone in America had currently been experiencing back then, which was a president who ushered us into a very tumultuous time during the COVID-19 pandemic. And voters, arguably and rightfully so, for some of them, right, wanted change, as many people do. In 2024, they wanted change again, this time against the Democrats, and it ushered in Donald Trump. But the strategy of trying to position it as such, that Donald Trump is the only reason and the only person to run against, which obviously is not exactly what the candidates did, but certainly on a smaller degree, right? Some people took it that way. A lot of voters, when asked on election day, this is verifiable, right? When you asked about what Trump stood for, you could see things like tariffs were raised to mind. You could see things like the economy, right? Things that are obviously so simple, so rudimentary when it comes down to messaging and perspective and the way people campaign, but it helped Trump win the election. And now we fast forward to today, where Donald Trump, was actually hovering around -6, -7% in terms of net approval in 2024. Today, he's down 16 points, which means 10% more of America now has changed their minds about where they stood on Trump on election day in November of 2024, and now today in December of 2025, and that matters for future elections because it does actually give Democrats sort of that green light in recognizing that Donald Trump is this boogeyman, not just for the left, but also for those in the center in a way he was not in the last presidential election, and really stands in the way of Republicans up and down the ballot. That's the third thing. That Donald Trump, in this strategist view, the reason that Republicans will lose the midterms are coupled into a number of issues, but that third most important one is that Donald Trump's unpopularity will have immense negative effects on the Republicans all across the country. We've already seen it in these special elections, in these regular elections. It's no secret why Abigail Spanberger took a state that Harris won by 6
Right.
and won by 16.
Right.
There's no secret as to why in Tennessee, a district Trump won by 22, Republicans won by just 9. Voters are angry, and it wasn't that they were angry at Matt Van Epps, the Republican businessman who had been endorsed by Trump and ended up being the nominee. They were angry at the man who endorsed him. They wanted to express their displeasure, and the way to do that very quickly and very easily was by doing it through this special election, in which we saw significant chunks of Republican votes switch over and vote for the Democratic Party, in some cases for the first time in decades. And this strategist recognizes it. And the fact that these Republicans can really look at this and say, holy crap, the midterms are going in such a negative way is something that really shows how dire of a position Republicans are in. It is very rare to get members, especially those who were responsible for doing a lot of the polling, doing a lot of the surveying, doing a lot of the data work to help your party win, go out publicly and say, it's such a red alert that I need to put this on the airwaves so the right person reads it, so the right person picks it up, so the right person adjusts the strategy for 2026, because as it looks right now, not much has changed and Republicans are being punished for it. Donald Trump is in a very bad position because of his own doing. What he is doing in the White House is impacting Republicans all across the country. And it is now taking these GOP heads who, again, have no financial incentive of trying to go out and do this. They don't get any brownie points with their party by saying their party's about to barrel into a loss. These are things that when you look at just how dire of a situation it is, only are exposed in these moments. And that is why this GOP strategist is trying to give his own party the reality check that is necessary for them to lock in for 2026. But knowing today's Donald Trump Republican Party, I am very doubtful that they will.
Well, he is trying to put the word up, give people the heads up. Now, what is Donald Trump doing? This is something that
I'm HHS Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill. I'm here with Assistant Secretary Alex Adams. Alex oversees the Administration for Children and Families. Intrepid journalists have made shocking and credible allegations of extensive fraud in Minnesota's child care programs. We believe the state of Minnesota has allowed scammers and fake daycares to siphon millions of taxpayer dollars over the past decade.
My office, ACF, provides Minnesota $185 million in child care funds each year. That money should be helping 19,000 American children, including toddlers and infants. Any dollar stolen by fraudsters is stolen from those children. Yesterday, I spoke directly with the director of the Minnesota Child Care Services Office. She could not tell me with confidence whether those allegations of fraud are isolated or whether there's fraud stretching statewide.
And they also don't know whether it's stretching over decades. He said decades. The fraud started when Ilhan Omar introduced that bill into legislation in 2019. When she introduced that bill into legislation, that's when the fraud exploded. So there might have been fraud, a little bit of fraud before that, but it exploded when she introduced that bill to allow lax in the rules and regulations.
Today, we have taken 3 direct actions against the blatant fraud that seems to be rampant in Minnesota. First, I have activated our Defend the Spend system for all ACF child care payments across America. Starting today, we require a justification, receipt, or photo evidence before we make a payment. Second, I've just signed and sent a demand letter to Governor Walz. I required a full 360 review of these centers. This includes attendance records, licenses, complaints, investigations, and inspections.
And third, we've launched a dedicated fraud reporting hotline and email address at childcare.gov. Whether you're a parent, a provider, a member of the public, we want to hear from you. Let me be crystal clear. ACF expects every state to uphold the highest standards of oversight, monitoring, and accountability for federal dollars. Minnesota is no exception.
We're committed to holding bad actors accountable. Regardless of rank or office, anyone who's involved in perpetrating this fraud against the American people should expect to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Now, let's see what is going on with Trump, because Trump sent people to, according to some, he sent people to investigate. Who knows what they're going to do? He freezes the money, but I could have sworn that this happened at some other time. I could have sworn that's what happened. Let's see. Let me give you one more thing. Let's put you on the docket. Let me put you one more screen, and then we'll get out of here. Let's see. Hold on. Don't start speaking, Mr. Tim. Hold on, Tim.
In this budget picture, and you just heard it, is that there is a storm at the federal level, and that storm is Donald Trump. That's the thing that's changed between November and today's numbers. The uncertainty and the destructive chaos is one thing. We walked in here, we talked about the tariffs, and during that time now, we're hearing that some of the things from the USMCA will be exempted from this. This is chaos. It's nonsense. It's not how you run any business, let alone the federal government, and the impact on states is immense. I don't have a crystal ball to tell you how he's going to act. What's clear in this budget picture, and you just heard it, is that there is a storm at the federal level, and that storm is Donald Trump. That's the thing that's changed between November and today's numbers. The
administration freezing child care payments to Minnesota as federal authorities dig deeper to root out fraud in the state.
But Democratic Governor Tim Walz is hitting back, saying the president is politicizing the issue.
Yeah, David Spunts joins us live from Washington, D.C. He's got the latest. David?
Hi, good morning, Joey, Tommy, and Griff. A top Health and Human Services official here in D.C. says, quote, "We have turned off the money spigot and we are finding the fraud," end quote. Here's Deputy HHS Secretary Jim O'Neill.
I've activated our Defend the Spend system for all ACF childcare payments across America. We're committed to holding bad actors accountable. Regardless of rank or office, anyone who's involved in perpetrating
continue to pile on in the Trump administration, hitting the state of Minnesota in several ways. First, from a law enforcement perspective, you see Homeland Security investigators there on the ground in Minnesota yesterday and the day before, and they will continue probing.
They're knocking doors, they're going to local businesses, they're going to these sites where we believe that there is rampant fraud, whether it be daycare centers, healthcare centers, or other organizations that take taxpayer dollars.
And perhaps, guys,
this is what I don't understand. If y'all know that they are coming to get y'all, and y'all got one of these centers up and running, why wouldn't y'all shut that stuff down like pronto? Why wouldn't you shut that down like immediately? If you know you're doing fraud, you know you're doing wrong with the money, why would you keep it open and not say, and then be like, I don't care? I don't understand what's going on. If you know that they coming for you, why would you keep it open? Why would you keep anything open? And you know these people are coming after you. I don't understand what's going on.
the catalyst for the investigation is this place exposed by a social media watchdog named Nick Shirley, who investigated. He says this place received state funding, but was not operating as an active daycare center. It was empty, and it actually had the word learning spelled wrong. The owner had to actually correct it, as you see right there, and put up the correct spelling. Governor Tim Walz responding to the overall controversy about the funding, saying this is Trump's long game. We've spent years cracking down on fraudsters. It's a serious issue, but this has been his plan all along. He's politicizing the issue to defend programs that help Minnesotans. Now, the Department of Health and Human Services wants Governor Walz to provide a, quote, comprehensive audit of the centers. The request includes attendance records, licenses, complaints, investigations, and inspections. Tommy, Griff, Joey.
So I'm going to play this video. I found this video the other day I didn't think anything of it because I didn't know who the person was. But I'm gonna play that video. Hold on. Okay. Oh, I don't like that shit. Hold on. Hold on. How do we know this is still going on? How do you know if it's true? X, Y, and Z. We don't know it's true. But the whole point is to shed light on it, right?
Making are true.
How do I know that they're true? Well, we showed you guys what was happening, and then you guys can go ahead and make your own analysis.
We're coming so we can make our own analysis. Are you 100% sure you're true?
Yeah, I am 100% sure I'm true.
That was conservative YouTuber Nick Shirley. His viral video where he's going door to door at daycares in the Minneapolis area and saying that he's uncovering massive amounts of fraud at Somali-run daycares has exploded on social media. Elon Musk retweeted the video.
Well, let's be sure. Let's be for real. We don't know whether it's fraud or anything. They didn't let him inside. Most of them didn't let him inside. Okay. You know, a random dude with a camera comes to the door talking crazy. We don't know whether he's telling the truth or he's not. We don't know who he is. We do know he's a reporter. We do know he has the potential to get us in trouble. So he wasn't inside everything. He was inside certain things, but he wasn't inside everything. Right?
JD Vance retweeted the video. CNN is looking into Shirley's claims. This idea of
my question is, why the hell wasn't regular journalism's there to look out for to investigate? That's your job. Why weren't they there? Why weren't any of the regular, normal, everyday, average people who be on the internet there?
Fraud in Minnesota, though, is not new. In fact, for many, many years, the Department of Justice has been prosecuting cases against dozens of defendants, many of whom are concentrated in the Somali American community.
Yes. So that is the truth. The truth is they have already been prosecuting these people. They have already captured these people. They have already found out who was the fraudster and who was not. Maybe the fact that they didn't let them in the door, maybe the fact that they weren't going to let this young man in the door meant police had already been there. I don't know why you coming. I don't know why you here, but police already done been here to check us out. It could be a matter of that. But I could have sworn that if this happened a couple years ago in 2020 and 2021, they've already arrested a whole bunch of people. Are we saying there's more people that did this? I don't think so. But I do know that Ilhan Omar has a lot to answer for.
Here in the Minneapolis area. Some of those cases actually began under Biden's DOJ in 2022 for a various list of different types of frauds. And so far, there have been at least 80 people indicted, at least 56 convictions. Attorney General Pam Bondi responded to the Shirley video, as did the FBI Director Kash Patel. Both of them say federal law enforcement has been all over this from the beginning and has secured many indictments. Further, this has become a major political headache for Governor Tim Walz because Republicans here in Minnesota say he is ultimately responsible for these fraud issues, for not doing enough to have an adequate level of accountability. Governor Walz says that he has done a lot. He's shut down one program. He's established a program integrity director. He says that he is doing what he can to try to root out this fraud.
How do you know that you're right? How do you know that all the allegations that you're making are true?
According to some rumor and according to some reports, they're moving to take her out of Congress. Take Ilhan Omar out of Congress. She hasn't done any wrongdoing, so I don't understand why they would be trying to remove her from Congress. She hasn't done any wrongdoing. You can't make her responsible for what other people have done, and you cannot prove that she is responsible. So if you can't prove that she's responsible, you have no reason to take her out of Congress.
Live, you guys, live on location. So you're going to have to bear with me. But this was so important to be on the air today that I didn't care. Right. I'm actually in the Caribbean right now on a boat. So if it looks a little off kilter, you can blame the boat, not me. Welcome to the program. I'm Trish Regan. Please make sure you subscribe, share, like. We are coming up on the end of the year. What do you know? What a great year it's been. For us, anyway, not so much for one Ilhan Omar or Tim Walz or Keith Ellison, for that matter. I'm talking about the entire state of Minnesota, all the politicians there that now find themselves in all kinds of trouble, as they should, because this is one for the history books. And guess what? The FBI is blowing all of this wide open. Well, the FBI and a little YouTuber. Yeah, a little YouTuber. And it's good. See, I told you, like I said, we're on a boat. So if things get topsy-turvy, you know why. Welcome again to the program. Congress, as we speak, is preparing to kick Ilhan Omar out. This is actually very serious, and it's in part related to the accusations against her and possibly her husband surrounding what they knew allegedly about what may go down in history as the largest fraud ever, although California apparently is trying to make a run for it as well. They got $70 billion missing there. Thank you very much, Gavin Newsom. That's really going to play well on your card when you try to secure the Democrat nomination. Think not. Anyway, right now the focus is Minnesota, and the focus is Ilhan Omar and getting her out of Congress, because if these accusations are in fact true, she may not have any choice. I mean, it's the end of the road for one Ilhan Omar, as well as for her husband, Timmy. He's like, Tim must be a very popular name. What do you know? Minnesota, another Timmy. So her Timmy is possibly in some serious trouble as well. Here's a big article that appeared in Axios pointing out that Randy Fine, he would be the representative Republican actually out of Florida. He's had it with this woman. So she.
Yeah, but the thing is, you just can't throw people out. You can't censor somebody. You can't throw them out just to throw them out. You have to have some proof. You have to have some reason why you're putting up, paperwork to kick her out. And she hasn't done anything. Nobody said she did anything. Nobody said she's accused of anything. She hasn't been accused of anything. She hasn't done anything. She just introduced the law, the bill that they voted on, that they passed for them to get the rules and regulations relaxed. So her state could get all of this free funding. Well, not free funding, but they could get relaxed oversight. Oversight was relaxed, meaning things were wavered. Them having visits, them having to report, them having to turn in paperwork. All of these things were relaxed under Ilhan Omar. She has done nothing wrong. But I have to say, you are always touting, they're always touting, we're a close-knit community. We Somalians stick together. We do all these things together. Look, the black and white community ain't that close. Somebody would tell on somebody if this was the black or white community. But we don't know how they function in Somalia. We don't know how the Somalians function. We don't know. They know each other. Ilhan Omar apparently married her brother. So that tells me, if she did, that tells me that your morality is not that high, or your moral code is not that long. So stealing money shouldn't be all that difficult. When you tell me my cousin is stealing money, or my cousin donated to my campaign, because these people who stole this money donated to Ilhan Omar's campaign. Why did they donate to her campaign? So that she would be able to relax the rules and regulations so they could do what they wanted to do. And immediately, as soon as they got those laws relaxed, all the verification, that whole thing, once they got those things relaxed, thrown out the window, that's when the fraud occurred. Why didn't the fraud occur before that? Why didn't the fraud occur after they shut everything down? Nothing happened after that. Everything happened right after she introduced legislation. She introduced legislation, and so did Donald Trump. Donald Trump introduced legislation as well as her. They both introduced legislation to make sure that the rules and regulations to get that money were taken away. So it's not only her fault. it's Donald Trump's fault as well. Okay. It's her fault. It's not Donald. It's Donald Trump's fault as well because he okayed that money as well. Okay. He okayed that money. So nobody knows that she did. Everybody knows that she did that. Okay. Everybody knows that she did that. But right after she signed that law, right after she introduced that law, that's when the fraud started. We understand that. So why are they having such a big deal about the fraud and everything now? Maybe all the money has not been recovered. We don't know. But I doubt very seriously once that investigation hit a year or two ago. I'm not sure when it started. According to the news lady, this started years ago. So is there still fraud and abuse going on? Or is it not fraud and abuse going on? My understanding is they got all of the people. They got the majority of the people. Fraud and abuse started right after she introduced that bill. That's a fact. That bill was introduced right after COVID. Right after COVID. She joined in 2018. She put that bill on the floor in 2019. The abuse started in 2020. The abuse. That's not an assumption. That's a fact. It was what it was. And a whole bunch of people got arrested because she said sooner or later, all those complaints and those arguments, all that stuff started hitting her office. She wrote to a congressman and told him, you need to check this out. But my thing is this. It happened in the middle of your district. Some of these people got to be related to you somehow, some way. They took funds from her or they took funds to give to her. She didn't know. This is her whole, Her whole platform is social policies. Her whole platform. Taking care of the poor people, giving money to the poor folks, poor kids, feeding kids, XYZ. That's her whole platform. So that tells me you had to know something. Because that's your whole platform. You mean to tell me you introduced a bill that helped all of these people in this community, that helped all of these people who take care of kids, feed people, X, Y, and Z, all of this, and you didn't know there was no fraud going on? You had no idea. Nobody told you. Nobody called you. Nobody said, hey, girl, you better watch these people. Okay. And then once this investigation started this last time where all these 80 so people got arrested, you mean to tell me you people were still doing this shit? Or are we talking about an old case? I can't really tell whether it's a continuation of the case, or when that young boy went to their door, they were just trying to keep the building open and they weren't doing anything illegal. They just were caught into the whole net and they had already been prosecuted. They had already went to jail. We don't know. We can't tell. I can't tell. Right? I can't tell one way or the other. But we do know she's not in jail. She shouldn't be arrested because she didn't commit the fraud. She didn't commit the fraud. But you can't tell me that she has no idea about the fraud. She has no idea about who committed. She has no family, no friends that said, hey, Ilhan Omar, you need to check this out. Your girl has got $1 million in her pocket. And she didn't think nothing of it. The minute people come up like this, that's the first thing you're supposed to figure out. As a congressman, my social policies benefit, my policies were benefited, or these people were benefited because of my policies. Let me see if these people came up. Yeah, that's what I think. I think this is just a wild, wild ride, this whole thing. But we will see what happens to Ilhan Omar. We will see. I don't expect her to get kicked out of her job. I don't expect her to get kicked out of her job. I don't expect anything like that. I do expect for them to investigate. And even if she knew, that would get her kicked out. But if you can't prove that she knew, don't try to get her kicked out. If you can't prove that she knew. But from my point of view, she had to have known. It was just too rampant, Too much money, too obvious. It had to be people going, it had to be people buying X, Y, and Z hand over fist. It had to be something obvious because the red flag started flying early. People started telling on people early. They just never did anything. They also went to court to stop them from giving the money to these daycare centers, these houses, to all these food places. And the court said, keep giving those people that money because you never know what's going on with COVID. It might be a lot, but we'll sort it out later. That's basically what the court said. So you can't fault them totally for keeping the money when they kept giving them the money. Court kept giving them the money. You can't fault those people totally. But that is what it is. Hopefully y'all hit the like button, the share button, all of that good stuff. We have content like this every day. I definitely will be back. I will be back later on today. I just happen to be on camera today. I probably won't be on camera later on. Hey, you never know what's going on. But I appreciate y'all coming out. If she didn't know, she was willfully ignorant. If she didn't know, she wanted to be willfully ignorant. It is what it is. You all hit the like, share, and subscribe button. I appreciate it. I appreciate you here. I will be back. Later on. Who knows? I am going to be back. We got the panel of debaters. We got panel of people who want to come up and who want to say some things. Come up on the panel. You don't have to be on camera, but you got to come up on the panel and then have a debate point. I have points. I will introduce a subject, and then people will have 3 minutes to talk about that subject, get it out, their point of view, Republican or Democrat. Every person will have a chance to speak who is on the panel. I'll introduce the subject. You got 3 minutes to talk about it. Convince the rest of us your point of view. That's how we're going to do it. So I will see you at 9 o'clock. That's when we're going to have that panel. And I appreciate you. Please like, share, subscribe at the channel. If you want to be a part of the panel, show up at 9 o'clock. And you don't have to live on the panel. It's going to be a round or two. It's going to be round. People, we're going to introduce people to the panel. However we need to do it, I don't know. We'll just figure out. We flying as we how you say, we driving as we flying, right? We driving as we flying. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it. I do. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that too.